Some dads teach you how to change a tire. Mine taught me how to lower expectations. I was the second son. The afterthought? If my older brother Chase was the prototype, all gleaming potential and polished resumes, I was the version they forgot to QA test. Chase got private school, AP tutors, a car on his 16th birthday, and a camera crew for his early decision Stanford letter. Me? I got hand-me-down textbooks with Chase's notes, still scribbled in the margins, and a birthday card 1 year signed. Love, Mom and Dad? With a question mark. Our house wasn't broken. It was just calibrated for one person. And that person wasn't me. The subtle stuff hurt more than any slap ever could. Chase's lacrosse trophies had their own shelf. My chess medal ended up holding down a stack of pizza coupons. At the dinner table, I learned to speak in 5-second windows, before Chase launched into another story about debate nationals or how networking is really about energy. Still, I worked. I didn't expect help, I just hoped for acknowledgement. In high school, I picked up hours at the bowling alley down the street. It wasn't glamorous. Greasy floors, screaming kids, and once, a guy who vomited nachos into a ball return. But the money got me through. I bought my own clothes, paid my phone bill, and saved every dime for something better. College was my ticket. I wasn't aiming for some Ivy League monument to ego. I applied to Midstate Tech, a solid engineering school with decent job placement, and a cafeteria that didn't make national headlines for salmonella. I got in with a partial scholarship. Room and board still loomed like a monster in the closet. But I was close. So close. I spent 3 days rehearsing my pitch. It wasn't begging. Just a clean, practical ask. Hey, can you help with first semester housing? I'll pay it back. I have a plan. The night I asked, Chase was fresh back from Costa Rica, talking about chakras and entrepreneurial enlightenment. My dad was half listening, swirling his glass of red like he thought it made him deep. I waited until Chase paused for air. Hey, I said. I got into Midstate Tech. I'm short a few thousand on housing. Any chance you could? Dad didn't even look up. He just smirked and said, because you're not worth the investment. Just like that. Like I'd asked if I could borrow his socks, and he caught me mid-theft. My mom flinched. Chase blinked. I sat there stunned. It wasn't the first time I'd felt small in that house. But it was the first time he'd said it out loud. I pushed back my chair. Left my plate. Walked out the front door and didn't return. I spent the next week couch surfing, sleeping in my car behind a Planet Fitness. The seatbelt buckle dug into my ribs, but I didn't care. It still felt freer than home. And in that silence, with no backup, no fallback, I made a decision. If I wasn't worth the investment, I'd become the best return they never saw coming. The first 3 weeks after I left home smelled like sweat, stale coffee, and someone else's dryer sheets. I was crashing on a friend of a friend's futon, the kind that folded in all the wrong places and squeaked like it had trauma. Their apartment had 6 people in a 2-bedroom, and a cat named Cheese who peed exclusively in shoes. Still, it beat sleeping in my car. I kept working at the hardware store, clocking in at 6 a.m., and out when the floor manager remembered I was still there. On breaks, I scarfed clearance granola bars and Googled how to stretch rice 5 ways. At night, I cleaned offices. Fluorescent lights, empty desks, the scent of industrial lemon cleaner, that was my college campus for a while. Sometimes I cried in the janitor's closet. Quietly. Like I didn't want to wake them up. No one knew. I didn't post about it. I didn't text anyone. I just worked. One day, while shelving ductwork adapters and pretending I didn't have blisters on both heels, a guy in a dusty Carhartt jacket asked where the capacitor kits were. I pointed to aisle 14 and mumbled, "They moved them again." He looked me up and down like he was scanning for something. "You know systems?" he asked. I blinked. "Kinda. I'm trying to learn." He squinted. "You built like a guy who works. Come by tomorrow. I need a helper." His name was Bill Carson. Ran a mom-and-pop HVAC company with a busted Ford Transit van, 2 employees, and a voice like gravel soaked in bourbon. He didn't smile much, but when he did, it meant something. I showed up the next morning in steel-toe boots I bought second-hand and jeans stiff with detergent. He handed me a wrench and said, "Rule 1, don't touch what you don't understand. Rule 2, understand more every day." Bill didn't believe in sugarcoating. He believed in showing up on time, knowing your tools, and never saying, "I can't," without trying. First week, I shattered a thermocouple. He didn't yell. Just handed me another and said, "Try again slower." We fixed busted water heaters in winter and installed rooftop units in July heat that made your brain feel poached. I hauled ladders, crawled under houses, and got bit by more spiders than I cared to count. But every paycheck felt earned in blood, sweat, and duct tape. And for the first time in my life, someone didn't treat me like an obligation. Bill didn't hand me anything, but he gave me a shot. A shot with no pity attached. On weekends, I hit the public library and studied for my HVAC certs. I filled notebooks with diagrams, formulas, and reminders like, "Don't cross the low-voltage wires unless you want to see God." My bank account hovered near zero, but I was investing in something no one else had, myself. Eventually, I passed the tests. Got my certifications. Bill clapped me on the back like I'd just finished basic training and said, "Well, hell. Guess you're useful now." That fall, I reapplied to Mid-State Tech. I had enough saved for tuition, and this time, I didn't ask anyone for a dime. The registrar looked surprised when I said I was returning after deferral. "You're one of the few who actually comes back," she said. I didn't tell her why. I just nodded and said, "Yeah. I made a promise." Moving into student housing at 21 wasn't glamorous. My roommate was 18, obsessed with crypto, and owned 7 hoodies with wolves on them. But I had a desk, a bed, and a place where I didn't have to dodge passive-aggressive comments over dinner. On my first night there, I unpacked a single mug, chipped, faded, and printed with "Bill's Heating and Air" in crooked font. It wasn't just a mug. It was proof. Proof that I could build something from nothing. That I wasn't disposable. That I could be worth something, even if no one had bet on me. And for the first time in years, I slept like I belonged somewhere. College wasn't easier the second time around, just lonelier. Most of the people in my dorm called me, "Sir," for the first 2 weeks. One kid asked if I was a TA. Another asked if I had kids. I didn't care. While everyone else was discovering cake parties and how to live off mac and cheese, I was commuting between class and work, juggling HVAC calls with thermodynamics labs. I didn't wear school merch. I wore steel-toe boots because I'd come straight from installing a rooftop unit or crawling under a historic home with a cracked foundation and enough mold to qualify as sentient. I wasn't trying to have the college experience. I was trying to survive. Sometimes, between classes, I'd nap in my car, set an alarm on my phone, and wake up drenched in sweat, my head pressed against a half-eaten protein bar. There were nights I fell asleep on top of blueprints and problem sets, and woke up convinced I'd forgotten who I was. But I kept going. I started doing repairs for other students, mini fridge repairs, busted thermostats, noisy vents, even ceiling fans. I charged $40 if you were nice, $60 if you weren't. Word spread. Soon I had a little notebook with names, room numbers, and repeat customers. My desk drawer became my bank. Cash went in. Rent came out. Eventually, I labeled an envelope inside it. Escape plan. It wasn't about running away. It was about options. Safety. Dignity. My professors noticed I actually showed up, not just physically, but awake. One, Professor Ellis, asked me to help troubleshoot the ventilation system in the chem lab. I fixed it. Quietly. No fuss. Next week, he forwarded my resume to a friend at a regional energy firm. They called me that Friday. Interviewed me Monday. By Wednesday, I had a paid internship. That internship changed everything. It wasn't flashy, a dull gray building with worse coffee and a boss who called everyone kid, whether you were 19 or 40, but I had a badge with my name on it and a desk that didn't wobble. That alone felt like a promotion from my past life. I listened, learned, took notes, asked questions. Got mocked once for bringing my own toolkit, then earned respect when I fixed the fuse on the fly during a client walkthrough. By summer, they asked me to stay on. And I did, full-time, while still taking night classes and hustling side gigs. Meanwhile, Chase was on a sabbatical from law school, posting yacht selfies with hashtags like #grindset and #nodaysoff. From what, I wasn't sure. My parents? Still nothing. No texts. No calls. No. Proud of you. Emails. Sometimes I heard echoes. An old neighbor mentioned seeing my dad at a barbecue. He says you're in, what, air filters? Or, your mom says you're fixing heating things, like commercial microwaves or something? They spoke of me like I was a myth, someone who once tried college, maybe joined a circus, possibly moved to Canada. I didn't correct them. I didn't care. Because while they were busy forgetting, I was busy building. When graduation came, I didn't rent a cap and gown. I didn't walk across a stage. I didn't post about it. Instead, I picked up my diploma at the registrar's office in a plain white envelope, drove home in my rusted Corolla, and grilled a burger in silence. No clapping. No proud speeches. No Chase raising a glass. Just me. A cheap diploma. And one hell of a plan. My first real paycheck from the energy firm was $1,280 after taxes. I stared at the direct deposit like it was a glitch. I was used to tips folded in half, cash under the table, and paychecks that barely survived rent week. This one covered rent, groceries, and left enough for something absurd like savings. I bought myself a chair. A good one. Not the kind you find on the curb and pray doesn't have a wasp nest in it. It had lumbar support, and everything. That chair became my throne. I studied in it, worked from it, and later, I built a future from it. I stayed with the firm for 2 years. 2 years of 60-hour weeks, certifications, proposal drafting, and chasing down field reports from guys who couldn't scan a PDF if their lives depended on it. I rose fast, not because I was flashy, but because I was relentless. Quiet. Precise. Reliable. All the things my family never noticed. I took side gigs too, consulting for contractors who were building green-certified spaces, upgrading climate systems for schools, fixing the airflow disaster in an old theater that smelled like ghost sweat. People started recognizing my name. Clients referred me to other clients. Former professors asked me to speak on panels. Someone called me an upcoming name in sustainable building infrastructure. And I nearly spit out my coffee. One night around 2 a.m., I was sitting at my desk, staring at a sketch for a dual-zone system I couldn't get right. I had 3 job offers in my inbox and no clue which one to take. I looked around at the apartment, slightly better than my old one now, with fewer leaky pipes and no dead outlets, and thought, what if I didn't choose any of them? What if I built my own? The next morning, I registered my LLC, Northbridge Systems. Named after the bridge I used to drive under on the way to class, the one with the graffiti that read, "Don't wait for a lifeline." I cashed out half my savings and rented a tiny office space above a donut shop. The walls were thin, and it smelled like glaze 24/7, but it was mine. I bought used desks, a decent computer, and one of those sad fake plants that's supposed to liven the place up. I emailed every contact I had. Told them I was going solo. Energy consulting, HVAC solutions, smart system retrofits. Custom work. Fair rates. No BS. For a week, no one replied. Then one guy did. A former school administrator I'd helped install a low-noise system for years ago. He needed an upgrade for an elementary school with a broken ventilation nightmare and zero budget. I underbid it, did the job myself with a guy I hired off Craigslist, and walked away with $400 in profit and a 5-star review. That review got me 3 more jobs. The 3rd job landed me a municipal contract. The municipal contract tripled my quarterly revenue. And just like that, I wasn't scraping anymore. I was scaling. Northbridge Systems didn't become a unicorn. It didn't go viral. But it grew. Slow, steady, and sharp. I reinvested everything. Hired good people. Turned down flashy nonsense. Got an accountant. Paid off my loans. The funny thing is, I never once thought about my family during those first 2 years. They never called. I never checked. But one day, someone forwarded me an article in the local paper. An old country club where my dad used to golf every Thursday had installed a new climate-controlled dome. It ran on the system I designed. A few weeks later, someone else forwarded me a LinkedIn screenshot. My mom had viewed my profile. Twice. I didn't smile. I just clicked. Ignore. It happened on a Tuesday. Tuesdays are usually quiet. The kind of day reserved for duct recalculations, invoices, and answering 3 identical emails from someone who can't open a PDF. I was at the office early, had my usual coffee, black, bitter, and judgmental, and was running numbers for a renovation bid. The office was quiet. Just the hum of the server rack and the faint sound of someone sneezing down at the donut shop downstairs. Then my assistant buzzed me. Landon? There are 2 people here to see you. No appointment. Said they're family? That word hit me like a slingshot to the throat. Family. It had been nearly 6 years since I left home. Since that night at the dinner table where my father told me I wasn't worth the investment. 6 years of building from dirt, while they toasted Chase's second startup, the one that sold organic pillows and went bankrupt in 8 months. I stood slowly. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't angry. Just curious. Like a museum patron staring at an exhibit they thought had been shut down for good. When I stepped into the lobby, there they were. My mom. My dad. Older. Smaller somehow. My mom wore pearls, always pearls, and held a leather binder to her chest like it could shield her from reality. My dad looked thinner, like someone had scraped off his arrogance with a butter knife but left the outline behind. Landon, he said. I tilted my head. Wow. Full name. You must need something. He cleared his throat. We were hoping to speak with you privately. I gestured to the conference room without a word. They sat on one side of the glass table. I sat on the other. My mom spoke first. We've had some changes in our situation. I waited. She glanced at my dad. He nodded, then spoke. We're no longer with the firm. The firm. As if they hadn't both worked there for decades. As if the firm hadn't been the third member of their marriage. We took some bad advice. My dad continued. Chase's business didn't work out. We invested heavily. And with the downturn, the house. He trailed off. They weren't looking at me. They were looking through me. Past me. Like maybe they could edit me back into the narrative without asking too many hard questions. We heard you started something, my mom said. Your company. Northbridge. My jaw tightened. And you thought, what? You'd stop by, I'd roll out an HVAC red carpet, and forget the part where you told me I wasn't worth it. They flinched. We were wrong, my mom said, eyes glassy. You've clearly built something. And we're proud. We truly are. I let the silence breathe. Let it stretch until it turned uncomfortable. What do you want? My dad coughed. We're looking for opportunities. Consulting, maybe. We have decades of experience. That was it. That was the moment. The moment I realized they weren't here to reconnect. They were here to cash in. I looked around the room. At the firm I built. The chairs I bought second-hand and reupholstered. The blueprints on the wall. The ugly mug Bill gave me that still sat on the shelf. Don't screw it up, kid. Then I looked at them. 2 people who once laughed when I asked for help. 2 people who bet everything on Chase and left me to sink. Now they were here. Asking for a job. In my office. My voice came out calm. Sharp. Surgical. I'm not hiring. But, my mom began. I'm not hiring, I repeated. And if I were, it wouldn't be for people who ghosted me for 6 years and now think pride is something you can trade for payroll. My dad looked like he wanted to argue. But he didn't. Because there wasn't anything left to say. They stood. My mom blinked fast, once, twice. I hope someday you can forgive us, she said. I looked her in the eye. I did, I said. But I didn't forget. They walked out. I didn't follow. Didn't watch. Didn't even exhale until I heard the door click shut behind them. Then I leaned back in my chair. And smiled. Not from pettiness. From peace. 3 days after the visit, I got a voicemail from Chase. Hey bro, heard about Mom and Dad coming by. Kinda awkward, huh? Listen, they're going through a rough patch, and honestly, they just need some support right now. We all do. Family sticks together, right? No, how are you? No, congrats on your company. Not even a lazy. Let's catch up. Just a thinly veiled attempt to wrangle me into the guilt circle. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, because I was done playing support beam to a house that collapsed years ago. They tried again. My mom emailed me an old photo of us at the beach, me about 9, buried in the sand, with Chase holding an umbrella like he was royalty. The subject line just said, "We missed this." I stared at it for a while. Then deleted it. Because here's the thing they never understood, I didn't grow in spite of them. I grew because I had no choice. Every class I passed, every certification I earned, every invoice I sent, it was all rooted in one truth: no one was coming to save me. And now that I'd made it, they wanted to rewrite the script. No thanks. They escalated. Subtle at first, an article about forgiveness. Sent to my inbox, a LinkedIn connection request from my dad that I ignored. Then louder, a message from a distant aunt about how cold I'd become. A weird comment from Chase's girlfriend under one of my rare Facebook posts. Family is everything. Don't forget where you came from, Red Heart. I almost replied, oh, I didn't. I just escaped it. Instead, I archived it and got back to work. Business was booming. Northbridge had just landed its biggest contract yet, a city renovation project involving 3 municipal buildings and full climate system upgrades. It was a multi-year deal with real visibility. I hired 4 new techs, doubled our back-office staff, and signed the lease on a proper headquarters. No more donut shop smells and flickering lights. Local press got wind of it. Some sustainability blog did a spotlight on young innovators in infrastructure. And I ended up in the middle of it, a photo of me in my grimy boots and button-down, smiling like I'd just unclogged the world's most stubborn vent. They asked for a quote. I kept it simple. When no one invests in you, you learn to build alone. Turns out, that's good practice for building things that last. I didn't name names. Didn't take shots. But I didn't have to. The day the article dropped, I got 5 emails. 1 from Chase. 1 from my dad. 3 from family members I hadn't heard from since high school. Each variation of, we saw the article. So proud. Let's reconnect. Let's grab lunch sometime. Funny how quiet they were when I was working 80 hours a week and eating canned soup on a mattress with no frame. Now that I was someone, they wanted seats at the table. But they didn't bring any chairs. So I kept doing what I'd always done. Show up, work hard, invest in people who believed in me before the headlines. Bill called that week. I hadn't heard from him in months. Retired, living out in the mountains somewhere with a dog named Fuel. Saw your name in the paper, he said. Didn't think you'd turn out so damn competent. I laughed. You're the one who handed me a wrench. No, he replied. You took it. That hit me harder than I expected. Because he was right. No one handed me anything. And I didn't steal anything either. I built it. With scraped knuckles and late nights and dignity no one bothered to recognize until it was too late. They didn't give up easily. About a month after the article, I got an invite to a small family dinner at my Aunt Carol's house. Handwritten. Embossed. With RSVP instructions like it was a wedding. I hadn't heard from Carol in years. Last time was when she told me, after Chase's college graduation, that some people just take longer to figure life out. Apparently, I'd figured it out too well. The invite said, a casual evening with loved ones, celebrating success and healing old wounds. Cute. I stared at it for a while. Then, for reasons I still don't fully understand, I went. Maybe part of me wanted to see if anything had changed. Maybe I wanted closure. Or maybe I just wanted to confirm that the same people who once left me behind were still exactly where I left them. The house was exactly as I remembered it. Same wreath on the door. Same smell of lemon pledge and casserole ambition. When I walked in, everything stopped. It wasn't dramatic, just that low hush when someone walks in wearing the wrong script. All eyes turned. My dad nodded stiffly. My mom smiled like she'd practiced it in a mirror. Chase was there too. Of course. Wearing a blazer over a graphic tee that read, "Startups and Chill." He looked surprised to see me. And maybe a little nervous. "Landon," my aunt said, arms spread. "So glad you could come." I gave her a polite nod. The evening was an exercise in forced nostalgia. They brought up old stories, sanitized versions of our childhood, like, "Remember when Chase used to take apart the VCR?" Or, "You always loved tinkering, even with those awful fans in Grandma's attic." No one mentioned the years they went silent. No one mentioned the day I left. They wanted warmth without accountability. A Hallmark card without postage. During dinner, my dad tried again. "You've done well for yourself," he said, cutting into a pork chop like it owed him money. "Really. We're proud." "Thanks," I said without looking up. "I think we didn't realize back then how driven you were. It's clear now." I set down my fork. "You realize," I said. "You just didn't care." Silence. My mom cleared her throat. "Landon, this isn't the time. Isn't it? You invited me here to heal old wounds, remember?" My voice wasn't raised. I didn't need volume. "You want to pretend like the past didn't happen. But I remember it. I lived it. Every skip call. Every missed birthday. Every time you praised Chase for trying and mocked me for actually building something." My dad looked away. "I don't need an apology," I continued. "I don't need a job offer or a speech. I came here to say one thing." I stood up. "I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. But I am done pretending we're the same people we used to be. I grew up. Alone. And now that I'm somebody, you want access again." I looked at them, all of them, one by one. I didn't build my life so I could share it with people who didn't believe in me. I built it so I'd never need them again. Then I walked out. No yelling. No slamming doors. Just a clean exit. As I stepped outside, I caught my reflection in the glass door, older, taller, calm. Not the forgotten kid. Not the backup plan. Just me. Whole. On my own. It's been a year since the dinner. I haven't heard from any of them since. No voicemails, no emails, no LinkedIn requests. Not even one of those passive-aggressive holiday cards with photos of other people's children. I guess they finally understood that silence goes both ways. Northbridge grew. We moved into a bigger office. We hired 2 project managers and a communications lead who's way too good at using whiteboards. I gave everyone healthcare and raised salaries across the board. Not because I had to, but because I knew what it was like to work without anyone having your back. We got featured in a National Architecture Digest. Then again on a sustainability podcast I didn't even know existed. Apparently we were quietly becoming one of the most trusted names in mid-size retrofit engineering. Quietly. I like that word. One day, I was invited to speak at my old college. They called it a Distinguished Alumni Spotlight. I laughed when I saw the email. I remembered walking into that school with a duffel bag, a part-time job, and a chip on my shoulder. I said yes. At the event, they gave me a little plaque and a glass of something fizzy. I gave a short speech. I used to think success was about proving people wrong. Now I know it's about proving yourself right, and doing right by the people who believed in you before the title, the office, or the paycheck. Somewhere in the crowd, a student in scuffed work boots nodded. That's who I was talking to. After the ceremony, a few people asked if my family came. I told them no. But I didn't offer an explanation. I didn't need to. People can fill in the blanks. Some things you outgrow, like a too small jacket, itchy, tight, and never made for you in the first place. I still think about that night at the dinner table sometimes. My father, cutting lasagna and tossing out the words like they cost nothing. You're not worth the investment. He was right. I wasn't worth the investment, to him. But I invested in myself. And the return? A company. A team. A life. One where I don't have to beg to be seen. Where I don't have to prove I deserve to be in the room. I built the damn room. Sometimes I still drink my morning coffee from that same chipped mug, the one Bill gave me years ago. Bill's Heating and Air. Faded lettering, handle cracked. Still holds heat better than anything store-bought. Still reminds me of where I started. Still tastes like freedom.